This is a small portion of our 3001 collection. And in this process, there were a lot of things that had to be figured out. To actually stitch these out, I had to learn how to digitize freestanding lace, basically. And that wasn't necessarily an easy thing because there's really nobody that teaches it, and it's very rare that anyone really knows how to do freestanding lace, especially like this. I was actually raised in a home with, my father was an architect, so there was a lot of building and construction. All of that thought process that was going on actually went into my quilts, went into all my projects, is what do you do now and why? I had to do the same thing with this. So when I started digitizing, it was a mess. It was horrible. The pieces were just horrible. They fell apart in my hands. The thing is that I knew that there was nobody I could call, so I had to figure out why it was doing what it was doing. So when I was actually digitizing, I used that construction thought process. And it's layers upon layers and layers upon layers. The actual one that works the best for this, which is you've got to have the bones, then you got the muscles, and then you've got the skin. And basically that's what that is. The first thing that was stitched out was a small zigzag. I laid down just regular stitches and then did a zigzag over the top. It's relatable to actually what the spine is. So when that was put down, it created a foundation for these pieces right here. And you can kind of look at those as ribs. So they now are secured. They're not going to come out from the bottom because I actually laid down that foundation. The next thing that was done was inside the little satin area, it did the underlay. And that also is a skeleton piece. It did the underlay on it, and then it did a zigzag across all the satin. What that did is make it round on top as opposed to square. So that's what's giving it dimension. I also do what I call double satin, so it'll satin back and then back again. And that also adds to the dimension. To start with, the stabilizer was really a big deal. It was really a big deal because the stabilizer that we all have now does not come out with just water. It just dissolves in water, but it stays inside your actual piece. To solve the problem of washing the actual pieces and getting them to where they're very flexible and they're not stiff, we had to come up with a washing system that actually allowed the piece to be soft and flexible and that there was nothing left inside the piece. That was one of the toughest things that we had to do. It was a little bit over 6 months before we actually figured it out. Okay, we're pre-washing all of the pieces now. We have a bowl underneath and this strainer on top. All right, so I'm just swishing them around because it gets caught in between the layers. So you want to go ahead and do that, and we're straining it out. We've stopped the water. I wanted to show you how it's actually sitting on the side, and it feels just like glue, and you can see how much is sitting there. And that's what's inside your piece right now, and it's actually more intense than that. It's very, very sticky, and that's the stuff we want to get out. So we're going to move on to the crock pot. I don't want you to freak out. I want to stress that this is very safe for our embroidery. What causes it to not be is using soaps or any other kind of baking soda, or vinegar, any of that is what makes it unsafe. The rayon is perfectly fine doing it. You are not going to hurt it. You want to go ahead and fill this up. We're doing the first batch, the first rotation, and fill it up with your hot water and give it that 4 hours. So what I mean by mathematically proportioned is, of course, we've got these two pieces, but 2 of the sashings will fit inside the same space as the block. And 4 of the insets will sit inside the same space as the original block. Also, we have what is called a 3 square. A 3 square plus An inset will fit inside the same space as the block. And what that actually does for you is that you can create any design that you want because these pieces will fit wherever you need them to fit because they are mathematically proportioned throughout. And it's really quite an amazing, amazing thing that happens. And we're developing new designs all the time to create another way that you can put something together. In the beginning, I thought, oh, I'm just going to sew it by hand because it's going to be a lot easier. Well, not so much. So I developed an actual sewing technique to take care of all of the connectors so you could sew it together by machine. And you want to set the machine up with the stitch that is called a step zigzag. So you have a zigzag, there's actually 3 stitches in the middle. So it's stitching as it's going back and forth. You want your feed dogs completely down because we're doing a tack stitch. You cannot do a zigzag stitch. It doesn't hold it well enough. So you have to do this kind of a stitch. Now, this is a machine from 1996 and it has it on it. So most machines have. You're also going to be working with a tearaway stabilizer. And this is essential. The connections that we're going to put together, if you just put it under the machine will just eat it up on the inside. So you have to have the tearaway stabilizer. And as it's sewing in the same spot, it actually tears the stabilizer. So it will go away. You don't need to worry about that. There is no exception. You have to use this. Because I needed a very stable environment for the hooping. I needed to be able to control the actual stability and tension of that hoop. And I ran into this amazing product. It's called Foshape 300. And it actually is a heat-activated felt. We have a complete video on how to use it. My daughter sells it on her website. It is amazing for this technique. So we have the felt, and I'm going to take a pressing cloth. You don't want to put your iron straight on it. And we're going to press. And see how it's kind of scrunching? And see how it's shrinking up? And it will continue to shrink. And as you can see, it actually presses to a very stiff, moldable piece of felt is all I can call it, but it's just incredible. You can see how I've got this extra. The key to this process is this step. I'm going to press that to give it a actual ledge on the edge. What happens with that is that it won't pull out of the hoop. If you've got a ledge right there of the felt, you can see how I've got a ledge, and then we're going to cut it just to the outside, and that is what holds everything inside the hoop. It won't move with that ledge. It's like putting your hands on a window and trying to pull it down. If your hands were straight, you wouldn't get anything done. This gives the hoop the stability that it needs to actually hold onto the stabilizer and not shift at all in the process of embroidery. You can use the white or the purple. And you want to put a good amount of the glue on the felt. And every single time you do this, the felt gets a little bit stronger. And because it's easy on your pins, you usually don't have a problem sticking pins in it at all. And the holes actually kind of close up too, which is really nice. So this is now ready to stitch. We're very proud of what we've produced. We've worked really, really hard on it. Went into great detail in the thought process of how this actually works. We also have provided some free stitch files on our website for you to test this out. If you have any problems or need any questions answered, you can call or email us anytime.